Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. Today, I have two-time Olympian Kawika Shoji. Welcome.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, happy you're able to hop on. And the way we start things off with a few random questions. So are you ready?
Sure, let's
All
do it.
right. So since it's Halloween, what was your most memorable Halloween costume growing up?
Ooh, that is a great question. I was a Hawaii football player. I had a real helmet. I got a jersey, and I think I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I was very young. And it's funny because my son, who's only one and change, is
Yeah.
actually going to be a football player, Jamar Chase, today. So
Oh,
that's kind of
nice.
kind of a full circle moment.
Excellent. All right. Second question. So, from a golf standpoint, who has a better short game, you or Obama?
Obama. He was better than me. But we had a good shot on the practice green there. That was fun meeting him.
Nice. All right. So second one. So now I saw you grab
But
rebounds.
Barry, hold on. I gotta say something. I am a better golfer overall, though.
Okay. All right. You drive further, right? You get.
Although he played really well. He played the group right in front of us. I got to watch President Obama's some of his shots, and
Yeah.
and he's really solid.
He's a gamer.
He's a gamer. He hit a bunch of greens. Greens and rag on par threes. I was very impressed.
Nice. All right. So second question, or the other question now. So I saw you grab rebounds for Shaq or Gatorade for Shaq, rebounds for Kobe. Did you ever share? Try to give Shaq any tips on free throws?
I was pretty young and intimidated back then. Today, maybe I throw a little jab in there because I can shoot it a little bit. But
Yeah.
back in the day, I was just like so starstruck. It was
Oh
really
man.
fun. The Lakers would come for preseason games, and with Dad being the coach at UH,
Yeah.
I was able to be the ball boy for those
Oh,
teams.
epic.
And I mean, that was like Kobe's early years, right? So
Yeah.
just great years as Laker fans.
Excellent. All right. So final random question here. So I saw you enjoy history. If you had a chance to sit down with anybody through history, who would you sit down with and have a cup of coffee with?
That's a great question. Probably, hmm, I don't know, the kind of the founding fathers of our country would be really interesting,
Yeah.
just going back to the George Washingtons, the Jeffersons, and obviously Abe Lincoln probably be up there on the list
Yeah.
too.
All right. So, well, welcome to the podcast. So let's jump right into, from the volleyball aspect of things. So, growing up in Hawaii, when Erik was on, he talked about he was a two-sport athlete from a tennis and volleyball standpoint. Were you just volleyball or did you, shine in other sports as well?
So I also played varsity basketball and varsity golf in high school. So and won state championships in basketball, and had a decent high school career. I'm really a big proponent of trying all types of sports and activities, and playing them as long as you can, really. I'm
Yeah.
not a big specialization guy. I understand where that conversation and that thought process comes from,
Yeah.
but I do find so much value in having this larger eclectic experience in other
Hmm.
activities.
Yep. Absolutely. Especially playing a sport like golf or tennis where it's just you handling that pressure. It's just you. You cannot have a bad game. And that, adds to your overall growth and just I think, being a better person and athlete.
Yeah, that's right. I think people ask me, well, what are your kids going to get into? And I don't know. I don't know what's going to stick with them, but I do want them to at least try a team sport and an individual sport,
Yeah.
as long as they enjoy it. Obviously, because there are so many things to learn from both.
Yeah.
On the
Absolutely.
team side, you have obviously learning how to work together and communicating and being selfless and a team player and just figuring out how to accomplish goals and win together.
Yeah.
On the individual side, um, you know, you have to learn how, like you said, have to deal with really a lot of individual pressure. You can't run to anyone really. You have to just be in the moment with your
Yeah.
own thoughts, and really be tough. And I think both really complement each other in different
Yeah.
ways.
Absolutely. And now, when you started playing volleyball, were you always a setter or did you, because of your height, you were a hitter and
Yeah, in Hawaii, we don't have a lot of big guys, so I was kind of thrown all over the place. I played all the positions. I did a lot of hitting back in the day. I got recruited as a hitter and as a setter.
oh shoot.
In fact, my first year and a half, I played outside hitter at Stanford
Oh no
because we were
way.
just shorthanded on some passing and some arms. And I was able to kind of, get put into that role and do okay. And also played libero on the junior national team 1 year. But in general, setting stuck and
Yeah.
obviously had a pretty decent career and just love the position and everything that comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. When Micah was on, he talked about he was, a hitter and he begrudgingly went to a setter because, when you walk into a gym, you don't turn heads setting a ball. You turn a head when crush that ball. And he goes, yeah, it was tough to be, to go that setter route. But, like you and for him, it, worked out pretty good.
I think that kind of story or idea really resonates with me with him because Micah is a very he's a very tough, strong-willed guy, an athlete, and he likes the responsibility and the ball in his hands. But growing up, that's what a lot of kids think of as the outside hitter because you're scoring so many points, right? So you
Right.
develop this mentality of really trying to carry the team and you want the ball. And that kind of actually translates well to being a setter because at the end of the day, the most pressure you could argue is on the setter. You have to make decisions and you have to be so accurate with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And it really takes a certain type of mentality, as well as some things that people don't realize is when you have that understanding of what it's like to be an outside hitter, you have empathy of what they're going through too. And so you understand both positions. A lot of outside hitters that have never played setter, they might not develop that empathy. They might really not understand what the setter goes through.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal in team dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
also think that's why the setters that have played outside get so frustrated too. Because it's like, man, I get it, but you don't know how hard this position is.
Right. Yeah, when he was on, he was so humble, so meek. And then, last summer we got to see him play up in Ottawa, and he's a competitor, man. He's fierce. I was like,
That's
wow,
right.
he's like a tiger.
That's right. That's right. And that's what makes him special,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, for you, playing volleyball for so many years, turning it into a profession, what was the hook it had on you that, it just grabbed you?
I just love the sport, just growing up around it. You can never truly master it. You can always get better.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard. It's a tough technical sport. You have to have touch, you have to have athleticism. Um, and on the team side, it's just so much fun trying to win games
Yeah.
and strategizing with a group of guys and just trying to go out there and win games and win championships. And the team aspect, I think, really pushed me through all the way. Yes, once you become a professional, there's money involved and there's ego involved for sure.
Yeah.
But it is fun going to a new team overseas or getting back with the national team and really trying to find ways to mesh and win.
Yeah. Excellent. And now, when you wrapped up high school, Stanford was where you ended up. Was that, the only option you wanted to do, or were there other things on the table for you? Why Stanford?
There were other options. I took a bunch of visits. When I got into Stanford, I went. We were struggling as a program back in the day. Um, you know, the story of worst to first played out, and a lot of people know that. We started worst place in the conference, ended up winning a national championship by the end of my career. But when I got in, I just felt like it was the right place for me. I value being a very holistic person. I value education. I value my relationships and meeting other interesting people. I love volleyball and I loved it, but that wasn't the only thing going on in my life.
Yeah.
When you get to the Stanford campus, you realize that everyone's there for a reason. They're all special in their own ways. They're not all geniuses. Now, many are, but
Yeah.
they're not all geniuses, but they're there for a reason, and they all add to the experience and the student life there. Um, and they really edify the students. That environment really builds you up and you learn a lot. And here I am today transitioning out of volleyball into the business world
Yeah.
and wouldn't be able to do this necessarily without some of those experiences. And so it was just the right choice for me. It was a little bit of a risk on the volleyball side, but it all
Yeah.
worked out.
Excellent. And then, after college, was pro a no brainer, or were there, was that like, I could do something else?
I didn't know. Um, that was 2010. So YouTube was a thing, but it really wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the access to professional volleyball was really limited. So I know that it doesn't seem like 2010 is, you know, too far
Right.
in the past, but it is, especially when you consider how many technological advancements there have been since
Mm-hmm.
then. Some of the advantages that the kids have nowadays is that they can watch any match,
Yep.
any highlight from any league, of their favorite players, pretty much, whenever they want.
Right.
It wasn't like that back in the day. It was also a time when the US national team was very experienced, a little bit older. There weren't a ton of young American players at the time going to good teams and good leagues.
Yeah.
So it was just this kind of unknown thing. So I started talking to some of the national team guys, some mentors, and just trying to feel things out. But it wasn't easy getting a job back then.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit, especially with the success of the younger players on the men's national team. I guess they're not young anymore,
Yeah.
but over the last 10 years, we've had some really
Yeah.
great young careers. And so things have changed a little bit. So to answer your question, it was an unknown. I knew I wanted to keep playing,
Yeah.
but it was hard to find that first job.
Oh wow. And now, back to the national team. When did where did that whole path come together for you to get to that national team and represent the country at the highest level?
You grow up youth national team, junior national team, so you have this dream. You kind of understand what that process looks like. But it didn't really hit me until after we won the championship. The following week, I got called down to go train in Anaheim with the Pan American Cup team, bunch of good pros and young professionals in the gym and on the team. I made the team and got to just have this 2, 3, 4 week experience with them. I was actually going back and forth between training and then getting ready for graduation up in Northern California.
Yeah.
So it's just this kind of weird thing. But and I started realizing like I could do this. My level is there. Maybe not at the top yet, but I could start to really kind of feel it and really understand kind of what it's going to take and know that it's achievable. So that was a fun experience. And then just kept getting called back the following summers
Yeah.
and just went from there.
Excellent. And how about do you still remember that first moment you got the jersey for the national team and there it was your number and your name on the back of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was Wichita, Kansas was my first official men's senior team match.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was World League. But sure, I remember I was nervous
Oh
too.
man, excellent. And then fast forward a little bit to 2016, making the team. What was it a given that you were going to be going to Rio, or was that like you found out like, holy shit, we did it, I did it?
So one of the things that people don't necessarily understand about the whole process of the national team and making rosters and making Olympic games is if you aren't a really solid starter, it is an incredibly stressful and nerve-wracking experience because it's so competitive. There's so many great players. You can slide guys in and out of those spots fairly easily,
Yeah.
depending on what the coach wants, needs, sees, how you're playing, how someone else is playing at that moment. So it's definitely never a guaranteed. Now, I had put in some good performances and had this kind of pretty solid stretch on the team and as a backup. And so I felt good about it. But it's not the most comfortable place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had
So when I got the news, basically it was a lot of excitement, a lot of relief too.
yeah.
But at that point in the summer, I felt pretty good about where I was at. But it's still when you get called for your first Olympic Games, it's quite the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet. Yeah, I've had a bunch of the guys on, like Mason, Cody, Tim McIntosh. I think yes, McIntosh. And it's it's wild. I had no clue how many guys were on the team, and then it comes down to you really like you were saying, you don't know until they call.
Yeah, and it's depending on the coach's decision or the tournament kind of requirements or
Yep.
guidelines, you might not get the call until a week before
Yep.
certain trips.
It's wild.
Olympics a little bit more. planned out and you got a little bit longer timeline, but not much more than a month.
Yep.
So you're really playing hard until, I mean, you're playing hard throughout, obviously,
Yeah.
but you're playing hard until that moment. You just don't know.
Yeah. And when, looking back on the 2016 games, when Matt Anderson was on, he talked about his, special non-volleyball moment for him was the flight home with the water polo team and just hanging with everybody. Was there any particular non-volleyball moment for you that stuck out?
Your first opening ceremony, walking through the tunnel and out into the stadium in Rio. It's a completely full stadium. It really hits you. The energy, first of all, is just is really indescribable. It's
Yeah.
very palpable. A lot of positive energy. And
Yeah.
then it's that moment too that you just realize it's real. You're there. You're going to start the following day in a very important match,
Yeah.
which Canada crushed us in the next day, by the way. I'm sure
Yep.
you know that.
Yep.
So we were nervous. We had a young team, but that's the moment where you do realize that you're there and that your hard work is paid off. It's really a culmination moment. You get very reflective too, and
Yeah.
you start to think about kind of how you got there and who helped you get there too. And it's really a special feeling for that,
Yeah.
20, 30 minutes of walking into that stadium.
I bet. And then you go into the counter of that, into Tokyo, where the pandemic and a completely or empty arena. That must have been like so surreal.
Yeah, that was tough. That was in the moment you're still excited and you don't really understand or realize kind of what you're missing. You're stoked to be at another games. You want to compete. We felt like we had a great, we were in good form and we had great chances to medal again. And we didn't get the job done. Part
Yeah.
of that was that we're just a team that needs that energy.
Yeah.
Over the years we've played our best volleyball in the biggest, greatest atmospheres and or when our backs are against the wall.
Yeah.
And we kind of need that a little bit to get going. And we just didn't get that extra kind of push in Tokyo. But it really hit me when I was in Paris this year when I was watching the boys. It was an awesome event, an awesome experience. But I was sad for the first match because I finally realized what we had missed in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And every match, 12,000 people sold out in Paris.
Right.
Just an incredible, incredible experience. But it hit me that, wow, we really missed out on a lot. I know that there were bigger and more important things going on in the world
Yeah.
at that time, but it
But
it
for
was a
you
big
and your
it
other
was a big
teammates,
bummer.
that was a big, that's like a lifetime achievement for
It
some of
is.
the guys that it's their first Olympics and you're in a vacuum.
That's right. That's right. And luckily for the guys that was their first Olympics, they all got to experience Paris.
Good.
So there was I'm positive that there's no one first and only time Olympian from Tokyo.
Yeah.
So that's great. For me, I got to have Rio, which was awesome,
Yeah.
but it was sad because it was my last one too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, speaking of Paris, how was that experience for you first as a, two-time Olympian and now you're a spectator, just seeing it from a different view?
So it took a little bit of time, maybe a couple of games, 3, 4 days to really settle in and feel the feels a little bit. And after that, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I was still supporting the boys, um, watching a bunch of matches, going to other events, going to different parties, and staying up late and just having a nightcap and being with family
Yeah.
and not necessarily caring about how much sleep I get
Yeah.
and really letting loose and experiencing the vibes, and just the feeling on the streets.
Yeah.
And that was really, really neat.
Nice.
So a little bit of mixed emotions, but in
Yep.
general, it was great.
Nice. Yeah. How awesome was this? The guys looked like they had such a good time. I was so happy to see Taylor make the team. He's a character.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw it kind of live as it played out.
Right.
The US men's volleyball team just kept getting more pub and whether that was on TV or through social media
Yeah.
and the public and random fans were getting behind us and that's just super exciting for our sport and we don't get a ton of notoriety. We don't get a ton of exposure, unfortunately, and we're working on that.
Yeah.
So to see a Serena Williams, to see a Tom Brady, to see a Andrew Luck, to see a Jason Kelsey at the game,
Right.
that is just so cool for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guys exploded and they delivered. I mean, they played great. We were very close to winning gold, but came home with some hardware, and
Yeah.
we're gonna set our sights now on LA.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing's going to be sweeter than that to grab a gold, at home.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, but we'll be ready. We'll
All
be
right.
there.
So now, on the pro side of things, when you played pro, what was that first year, what was that like? What were some of the harder things about, new country, away from, different language, the whole aspect of it?
Yeah, so being a professional volleyball player, whether it's your first year or your last year, and whether you're making $5 or $5 million, it's not a glamorous job. It's not. It's fun. It's valuable, but it's not glamorous.
Yeah.
And I would never trade any of my experiences at all because, like I said, they're lifelong valuable experiences that I'll always take with me. I've learned so much about the world, other people, myself, but it's not glamorous. The day-to-day is a grind. It's hard. You're away from your friends and family.
Yeah.
My first year was in Finland. It was dark at 2 p.m. So I'm coming from Hawaii. I'm playing in Finland. It's -20, -30 Fahrenheit and Celsius, depending on the day.
Yeah.
And and the sun's up at 10 and it's going down at 2. So, that's a big change for a guy like me.
Yeah.
If you're from Newfoundland, or
That's
Connecticut
right. Yeah.
it's not quite a big of a change, but it is in some ways.
Yeah.
So the weather, the language barriers, depending on what country you're in, there's more English
Yeah.
in some than others, but it's not glamorous.
And you don't have Google Translate to help you.
I did not have Google Translate back then. There was no iMessage. There was no FaceTime.
Right.
So it was Skype and email.
Yep.
Uh, but again, I'm thankful for even that because you talk to some of the older guys, Harch was writing letters in the late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s. So
Yeah. And, phone bills, those long distance phone bills, were expensive. And like you're saying, you're not making, a lot of, maybe you're not making a lot of money. So yeah, it's funny because my next question was being a pro is not rainbow and unicorns. You're different country all by yourself. Like, you were talking about Finland. I had Mike Marshman on who played over in Finland, and it was dark and it was like, missing your vitamin D. And it was like, you had to fight depression.
that's right. That's right. It's, de depending on where you're at, there's always challenges,
Yeah.
and even when you look at professional sports in North America,
Hmm.
obviously to the average person, they make in the large sports, they're making millions of dollars.
Right.
And that's true. But it doesn't come without its challenges. It doesn't come without a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time on airplanes or buses,
Yeah.
a lot of time away from your family. And and yes, they're well paying jobs, and they're fun. Like I
Hmm.
said, you're playing sports for a living, but it ain't easy.
No, and even seeing up in Ottawa, just volleyball is not the big sport we have in North America. Going up in Ottawa and seeing when Erik came on the court, the fans is like it's constant noise, and you probably experienced it too. It's like you really in those moments you really just you're just not a normal person. You got everybody judging you, critiquing you, and more so now with social media.
Sure, exactly. And it's great. We need more fans. Volleyball's growing in both US and Canada. It's really exploding and that's awesome. But like you said, that also comes with the downside is and in this moment of we're talking about technology advancements,
Yeah.
there's athletes and people in the public spotlight have never been under a bigger spotlight, more scrutiny just because everything is so public.
Yeah.
There's camera phones everywhere. You know, you can comment on more or less any athlete's posts or status, etc. And a lot of times they see it. And so, that's it's the blessing and the curse, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
social media has allowed people to have this great audience and fan base and interact with them and capitalize on it. But at the same time, it's not without its drawbacks.
Yep, absolutely. And now, when you were playing pro, did you look forward to those moments when you got back together with the boys, back to the, national team? It was just probably felt a lot like the college locker room.
Oh yeah, just big hugs and just good vibes and energy and those first couple of days when you're back together, really special
Yeah.
because it's time. You miss these guys. You want more time with them. You don't spend enough time together. It's typically 3, 4, 5 months
Yeah.
with the national team, and they become your best friends. They're your brothers. That's who you're living, traveling, playing with for those 3, 4, 5 months a year. And you miss them when you're not together.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the best memories. It's just walking to the gym, everyone having a smile on their face, ready to dive right into a big summer.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, just that team camaraderie and aspect is really what kept motivating me year in and year out.
Yeah. And now looking back on that whole career, who are a couple of guys you really right now just miss playing with or miss being around?
Oh, that's a tough question, Barry. I mean, I can name so many. I think the beautiful thing about the sport and my career and is just forging so many solid relationships around the world. So yes, like the national team guys were my closest friends and brothers for many, 10 plus years,
Yeah.
even more for guys like Matt Anderson and Max Holt, who we grew up playing together. Um, but I probably can't just name a couple. I
Yeah.
mean, and then just on the overseas side, I mean, getting to know people and still WhatsApping 4, 5, 6 old teammates, weekly
Yeah.
from across from around the world and these other countries is really cool. But I don't know. I
I
used to
don't want you
love
to put
setting.
anybody on the spot and leave somebody out. That's
I
all
used to
good.
love setting all those guys. I will say, just playing with Erik for so long,
Yeah.
the libero setter connection and setting so many balls off of his passes.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now, there is no better person to set a ball off of than my brother.
Yeah. Excellent. And now, speaking of setting, I had Jacob Pastor on who went to Ohio State, and he talked about that moment he went into the gym and he had Micah setting him, and he said Micah came up to me and he apologized because the ball was 6 inches off, and I was like, "It's okay." He's like, the precision, the accuracy, you don't have any idea how the skill level at that when you're at that level.
It's one of the hardest things in sports. I tell
Yeah.
people that all the time. You have to take a ball that is traveling in the air, okay? Varying heights. It's not like it's the same pass over and over. All kinds of fast pass, high pass. Some are floating, some are spinning, some are dry, some are wet,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And you have to take that ball and you're typically jumping. So you're in the air. You're also overhead, over your head, which people aren't meant to do very many overhead activities or exercises in
Yeah.
general. Like the body does not like that, okay? Which is well documented. And then you have to put the ball in a hole that's, a basketball hoop size.
Right.
And you have to do it with the correct tempo. You don't have to just put the ball at the spot. You have to put it with the right tempo as well.
Uh-huh.
And you have to do all of that without mishandling the ball and getting called for a mishandled contact or a double. I mean, if you break it down in that way, that is such a hard skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's my and then hold on, one more thing. Half of the sets go over your head
Mm-hmm.
backwards.
Yep.
So you can't even see the target. So a lot of target-oriented sports, the ball's not moving typically.
Yep.
Some are, but the ball's not moving, and you can see the target. If now think about having to watch the ball and you actually you're not focused on the target, right?
Yep.
So, in golf, the ball's not moving.
Right.
Golf is an extremely hard sport. It's more difficult because of the mental aspect, in my
Uh-huh.
opinion, than necessarily the physical aspect.
Yep.
Yes, the technical aspect is tough too, but the ball's not moving, okay? And typically you have a feeling, or sometimes people actually even look at the hole when they're putting. So, you have this kind of connection with the target
Right.
naturally, right? Basketball, you are looking at the target when you're
Mm-hmm.
shooting, typically.
Yep.
Okay. And the ball's in your hands. So you have control of the ball, and it's not, okay, sometimes you're dribbling it,
Right.
but it's not really moving. So,
And the target's not
and
moving.
and the target's not moving. That's a great point. That's a great point. It's not like in volleyball that there's a static target, because all of the hitters have different preferences.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Yes.
like the ball closer to the net, some like the ball farther from the net.
Yep.
Okay, so obviously I'm biased, but
I'm right there with you.
I'm making the point that setting the ball at a very high level is one of the hardest things in sport. I
Yep.
think after watching the World Series game last night, hitting a baseball where they're pitching four, five, six different types of pitches
Yes.
in that short of a distance with that at that velocity, I think is probably the hardest thing in sports. But setting a volleyball at the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
isn't too far beyond it.
Well, and you also left out the fact that you've got to understand who your hitters are going up against, and making that right choice. Like, okay, I got that's a weaker blocker behind me. I'm going to try to do. There's so many aspects and
Well, there's
decisions
there's
go
that
into it.
there's that decision making process.
Yeah.
There's split second decisions. That's a really good point. Having brought that up, I do think playing quarterback at the highest level in American football, in the NFL, and even in college, but in the NFL,
Yeah.
you have guys trying to come and hit you,
Right.
and that's a different element of all of this, and you have to be
Yes.
accurate, and you have to make split second decisions, and so that's right up there with the
Yep.
best of them too.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So jumping back to your pro career, over the 12 years you've played, is there one country you missed that you wish you could have played in?
The one major volleyball country that I didn't play in was France. Uh, I'm not sure that I necessarily wish I would have played there. We
Yeah.
traveled there for the national team, and I went there for Champions League and got to play there. So that was the one kind of major league I didn't get to play in. I was fortunate to play in all of the major leagues. Um, but I wish I had spent a little bit more time probably in Italy.
Yeah.
It's Italy's really special, the volleyball culture. Um, but from a lifestyle perspective, there's always something to go do, see, eat, drink. That's really fun. When you have an off day on a Sunday or a Monday, depending on if you play Saturday or Sunday, the next day is usually free. What makes the experience is that you have something to go and do. And I love history, I love sightseeing. So you can always find something to go see in Italy.
Yeah.
Great food, obviously great wine. I mean, from a cultural standpoint, living there is really, really special.
Mm-hmm.
I also played 4 years in Berlin. Berlin is special in its own right because it's a big international European city.
Yeah.
English is so common, and there's just also so many things to do, from a restaurant, bar, nightlife, concerts, other sporting events. So that as a young American that went there to play from age 23 to 27,
Yeah.
that was awesome. Does and also European modern history too.
Right.
That's the heart of European modern world history.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Exactly.
much the heart of it. So that was cool too. Um, but that stop was really special because there's just so many social things to do.
Yeah.
I went to Italy a little bit later in my career. I had my two girls there, two different stints there, and that's from a cultural and just lifestyle. It's really unique.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
must have been special to have the kids there, even though they're young, just to be there as you're playing. Sort of like with David Smith, right? He's over in Poland. He's got his family there, and like that's not easy to do. And another aspect of a pro lifestyle of you uproot your family, and not easy.
No, not easy. Another game changer, another X factor in the whole experience as you get a little bit older, a lot of guys start to have families, and you have to consider them when you make decisions.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is, and it complicates it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, does it make the experience more rewarding? 100%. Like I look back on my years and it's like, wow. I mean, both girls born in Italy and just getting to experience this with the entire family. Now they're not going to remember
No.
any of it or much of it, but with phones and we have so many pictures and videos, so that's
Right.
really neat. But uh, another aspect of the lifestyle that gets overlooked is you have to consider all of your family members when making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fun, rewarding, but it does complicate the decision-making process when it comes to teams, contracts, places you're going to live.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And now, on the tail end of your career, when did you know it was time to, okay, was it injury or was just like, I'm ready to start something new?
That's a really good question, Barry. I think the rare thing for professional athletes is that you get to go out on your own terms. Most people get injured, get cut, can't renew a
Yeah.
contract, and they don't get to retire when they feel like the time is right. After the Olympics in 2021, I knew that I wasn't going to play the national team anymore. It was just time for me to give that up and spend more time with the family and let some of the younger guys come in and take over. And so I started to plan kind of this transition out of volleyball.
Yeah.
Started talking to a bunch of mentors, people within the volleyball world and people without outside of the volleyball world as well, just to see what kind of job opportunities there were and connected with some people, decided I was going to go over for one more year. I played in Turkey. I was going to chase a little bit of money
Yeah.
and try to put a little extra in the bank
Yep.
as I prepare for this transition. Luckily, during that time, I was able to really connect well with the people at my current wealth management firm, my
Mm-hmm.
boss. We had talked extensively for 8 or 9 months before I decided to hang him up. And I wanted to go out on my own terms, which I was able to do, which I'm
Yep.
thankful for. And I wanted to move the family back home because both sets of grandparents are here. So I
Yep.
wanted them to just have more time with them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that time back.
You don't.
And I wanted to learn something new and learn some business.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like it kind of all fit in together at that time. And I
Yeah.
thought, you know what? Okay, it's time. Has it been easy? No, it's tough. You gotta, there's so many emotional
Mm-hmm.
and technical challenges as well on the new job side. But
Right.
it's been a wild but great ride so
Well,
far.
it's scary too, making that, jump from athlete, when you make that change in jobs in life, it's a scary thing. Okay, I've got my family, I've got to consider and everything like that. Yeah, it's not easy.
No, and that's part of my motivation in doing this is to be that example for some of my teammates or other athletes that are going to have to go through this
Yeah.
process as well.
Yeah.
I really think about that all the time. I'm currently on the USA Volleyball board as the
Mm-hmm.
athlete representative for our men's team. I get to talk with them. I get to meet with them every once in a while. And I'm just now trying to use my experience, in a way for them and to mentor them moving forward because it is scary. The fear of the unknown, fear of
Right.
learning new things, putting yourself out there.
Yep.
But when you draw back on your experiences and the lessons you've learned, the hard work, the dedication, the ability to learn,
Yep.
we really can do anything. A lot of times people and or ourselves put athletes just in a box, right?
Yes.
But they're some of the hardest workers and biggest team players out there.
100%. Yep.
So if you have discussions or you have the right with mentors or people that truly understand team dynamics, communication, business, a lot of them really want to give you opportunities too.
Yep.
And so now some of the things that I preach to my old teammates is just put yourself out there, go talk to people, see what's out there because some of them want to stay in volleyball and that's great.
Yep.
And I still am connected in volleyball in some ways. I still do a little coaching, but some want to get out. Some don't want to coach. Some
Yep.
want to go and learn something new or do business. And I'm hoping that I can just be a resource for them and just kind of be a model that, hey, it's possible.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What advice do you have for those guys that are like on that fence? Do I pack it in or I go for another year?
I think that's a really personal decision in terms of when or when not to call it quits. I don't think that anyone can really give you advice on the decision. Now, what can lead up to that decision? Sure. I mean, I think what I tell them is you just can't plan for retirement or the transition out of volleyball early enough.
Hmm.
If you wait till the last ball drops or till you get injured or you get cut, it's just going to be that much harder to get started on the next thing.
Yeah.
So start to have conversations, like I'm saying. Start to open up your horizons and just start to be interested in other things too. Whatever that may be, just start reading about it and just start listening to podcasts and kind of opening up horizons. And then from there, I think that your heart or our hearts kind of tell us where to go from
Yeah.
there.
All right. And yeah, you talked about mentors. Who are some of the mentors that were there for you that you like look back, it's like, I wouldn't be where I am today without some advice or their mentoring.
Yeah, I think obviously my parents, they, have been there from day one and have pushed me in both the athletic side and the academic side, and really have given me a great upbringing and understanding, what's important, and especially family and friends, and really knowing that there's more to life and who you are than just sports.
Yeah.
I also had just so many great coaches over the years, and that's part of the reason why I still want to coach a little bit, is that you always remember those influences. One of my high school basketball coaches, or my high school basketball coach, is in the business world. He's a doctor as well, CEO of a big company now. He's always been a great resource for me and mentor. Um, and yeah, I could go down the line
Yeah.
of people, just because you just meet so many interesting and selfless people out there that are willing to mentor you, and probably take me another hour, but those are some of the first people that come to mind
All
for sure.
right. And then, when you got out, did you find that you needed to disconnect from volleyball right away for a period of time, or were you, yeah,
Yeah, good question. I didn't look at touch a volleyball for about 9 months
yeah,
after I stopped. Nothing. I'm talking. I would follow Erik's games
right,
and the national team a little bit, but didn't have a volleyball in my house. Didn't go play beach.
yeah,
Didn't coach. And I needed that. I dove headfirst into the new job.
yep,
Really wanted to put all of my time into the job and my family.
yep,
And I think it was great. And then slowly you start to kind of get that itch a little bit. You
yep,
start wanting to work with some kids and pass along some knowledge, go to some games. And then here we are, just, I think I have a great balance going, and working a new job, have the family, coach
yep.
some kids on Saturday mornings,
Oh,
and then
nice.
follow some of the games, go to some of the UH games, have a blast taking the kids
Yeah.
doing that.
Excellent. And now, you touched on a little bit on earlier, you're part of the USA Volleyball board. What is your role with the board?
Sure. So there's a bunch of different constituencies within USA Volleyball. Mine is the USA Men's Indoor Team. We get athlete representatives from each discipline,
Yeah.
and basically it's just representing them and their interests, and
Now, are we
having
talking
a
about specifically the senior men, or just boys and men's volleyball overall?
spec that's a good question. Specifically the senior men,
Okay.
but in a way it is a liaison for the boys volleyball community in
Yes.
general. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're only voting or interested in those topics, because you're a part of the entire organization, and to push it forward, and
Yeah.
really to keep the best interests in mind, just in general.
Yep.
But that is the group of people that I represent. And it's a super interesting time, because boys volleyball is growing,
Mm-hmm.
as is girls, exploding at the high school and club levels. Um, but there's also a bunch of competitive threats too to USA Volleyball. You have all different kinds of leagues and tournaments and events and clubs and pro leagues, and there's all these different entities now in the space. And so we're really trying to figure out how to navigate that. And I think John, being my old coach and new CEO, is
Yeah.
in a great position to move us forward into that space, and really understand, how USA Volleyball fits into the overall ecosystem of worldwide volleyball, but
Hmm.
especially in the United States, and how we can continue to improve for not only the national teams, but at the grassroots level for the clubs and for all the junior players too.
Yeah. And what do you think can be done or needs to be done to help elevate the boys and men's game stateside? You know, you have pockets where it's popular. Like up here in New England, when I moved here from Canada, the guys I were playing with were guys that just learned to play themselves. In Canada, we play volleyball from middle school on, the boys do. And it's just like, it seems like, you know, since I've dove back into volleyball, it's like you have pockets where it's strong for the men's game, but it's not overall.
You know, I think we got to continue to work together. I think the different regions, the different clubs, we have to continue to communicate better, more effectively, more efficiently on what what everyone needs, how we can work together and you know, really align interests. Because I think overall everyone has very similar interests, but because it's such a large country and it is segmented in these pockets of the country, a lot of times we don't necessarily talk to each other and really understand each and everyone's needs. Luckily, with social media, volleyball is getting more exposure.
Yeah.
So the big question is always going to be how we can get it on TV more.
Right.
And I think if we keep doing what we're doing, the club scene continues to grow, the women's leagues continue to grow, we talk to each other, we understand like how we can build each other up and work and build off of some of that success. It's easier said than done for
Yeah.
sure. But I think a lot of times because it's been so pocketed or regionalized, a lot of times, there hasn't been a ton of cross-regional communication.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that takes strong leadership, and that takes special personalities and the right type of communication. I think John's a great guy to lead us in that
Yeah.
respect. But yeah, it's responsibility on really everyone's shoulders to push it forward,
Yeah.
and there's only a certain amount of investors or money that
Right.
that they're out there right now. So I'm not one to say, well, yeah, we just need more money. Like, yeah, that's obvious, but we got to do our job as
To
in the
build it
volleyball
up.
world to build it up
Yeah.
and to get more exposure, to continue to showcase boys and college volleyball too.
Yeah.
Um, because at the university level, it is while it's a little scary right now in college sports, just
Yeah.
with the way that everything is going, NIL and all these different congressional
Hmm.
cases, etc. It is really important that we stay strong at the university level because a lot of fans, they support their universities too,
Yep.
and they get exposure to volleyball at that level, and then that can carry forward to the pro and to the national team level too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we were lucky enough, you know, Ottawa was a 6 hour drive from us. So we went up there and we were able to catch the VNL. And, you know, my daughter is 14. We went up and she was like not a fan of the men's game because it was too fast and it was over so quick. But she got hooked after seeing it live, seeing at that level, all those countries playing. It was like, that would be great to see some sort of a tour for at that level across the states, if that's even possible or feasible.
Yep, I think that's possible, that's feasible. We've done different types of tours before. Um, I think if we can continue to build the sport, raise money as well, then we're able to put on some more of those
Yeah.
events.
That'd be
That's just
awesome.
that's just the way it is. It's not that we don't want to.
Yeah.
It's we got to see what makes sense for the various organizations involved.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so fun question. So I already know this answer because you know it's the question Erik and Taylor go back and forth about is, you know, what is the toughest position in volleyball? And you know to me it's a no brainer. I'm sure it's to you it's a no brainer.
Well, you know how you're the master, but you know how you can put these links or you can point to the earlier
Yep.
parts of the conversation. I think we laid that out
Uh
pretty
huh.
well, Barry.
Absolutely.
I am empathetic to all of the positions. I will say that being a middle at the highest level is unbelievably difficult because you have to read the setter and you have to play against the speed of an opponent's offense that continues to get faster and faster. The
Yeah.
game doesn't slow down. It gets faster and faster over time. It's an incredibly hard job. but you're only playing 3 rotations, like Erik said.
Right.
So you out.
Yeah.
You're not in this discussion.
Yeah.
Having said that, the spikers have a lot of pressure to score points. That's at the end of the day, you got to score points, and that's a tough job.
Yeah.
On the libero side and the outside hitter receiver side, if you go and sit in the end zone of an Olympic volleyball match and you try to watch the serves that these guys are passing,
Yeah.
it is an absolute joke. That job, while the best guys in the world make it look easy, is a borderline second. I mean, it's 1A
Mm-hmm.
setting, 1B passing the ball at the highest level. I had a friend that came to Paris with us, and he knows volleyball. He's from Hawaii. His daughters play. He got tickets in the fourth row in the end line, and he came to me after the match. He watched the semifinal match against Poland.
Mm-hmm.
He came to me after the match and said, Kawika, holy, and I'm not going to use the next word on this podcast, but I cannot believe what Erik does. I mean, 80 plus mile per hour serves
Yeah.
with the spin and the curve and the rotation and the float on some of these serves.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not just trying, I mean, okay, at some times you're trying not to just get ace and keep the ball up, but most times you're trying to put the ball on the spot,
Right.
and I challenge anyone that thinks passing is
Oh.
easy, receiving is easy, to go behind a national team match on the end line and you go see how easy it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
setting 1A, receiving 1B, read blocking 2A, killing a lot of balls 2B.
Yeah. Well, it's like Mason Briggs said. He said, as a libero, you have one job. That's it. You can't rely on, picking yourself up by doing a serve or maybe getting a kill. You just got to pass and you got to be 100%.
That's a great point because it's kind of like the kicker
Yeah.
in American football. You do your job, everyone kind of pats you on the back.
Yeah.
It's what you're supposed to do. You don't do your job, you get aced a lot, you miss a kick to win the game or to tie the game. Now everyone's out to get you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're in the spotlight. And you're only really in the spotlight for negative things.
Right.
And that's a very underrated aspect of that position and this discussion.
Yeah.
I will say that I have to give Erik a couple more props and shout outs because he's been Mr. Consistency for 10 plus years now.
Yeah.
And to do that at that level and play incredibly well and not to necessarily give into some of these challenges
Mm-hmm.
and to hold steady and strong and be that consistent is just an incredible feat.
Yeah.
It's really I cannot understate that enough or overstate that. I guess I can't overstate that enough.
Yeah.
It's incredibly hard position physically and mentally because you only stand out when you typically when you play poorly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to do that for many, many years at the highest level and to do it well is a really incredible feat.
Yep. Absolutely. And speaking of your brother, I noticed that you also played with David Smith on the same team, or no, well, in Poland, and now he's playing with David. So it's just a wild connection.
This is a wild connection. I love playing with David. We had a great connection. Right in when I came out of Stanford, he was on that first Pan Am Cup team that I played on, and just love setting him over the years.
Yeah, nice. And now when Micah is ready to hang it up, are we going to see the Aloha Friday podcast come back?
We should bring that back. The triple kids in both the Shoji and Christensen family has made that extra tough.
I bet.
But maybe we'll just start a podcast and we just comment on the previous week's matches overseas. That could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, away from life, what are some of the things you enjoy? Probably still an avid golfer.
I do. I love golfing. Love going to the beach with the kids. Still work out a little bit too. Read when I can. Casual reading has been tougher, but obviously I'm reading a lot for the job too, which is neat. And just spending quality time with friends and family here. that's what I'm all about, and just enjoying Hawaii. And I get to travel a little bit too, but when you start to travel away from Hawaii, you really start to miss it.
I bet.
When you live here growing up, you kind of take it for granted,
Yep.
and so having traveled now coming home, I'm really, really grateful and really enjoy it more actually.
Excellent. Now, do you do any camps or any, things that you want to prop up right now
Yeah,
or?
I mean, not really. I do some setting work and some clinics here in Honolulu at Volley Hawaii, and occasionally some clubs will fly me up to the mainland and do
Yeah.
some work up there. And um, it's been a lot of fun, but don't do too much promotion.
Yeah.
Just, kind of word of mouth type of
All
thing.
right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, final question. Should people ask ChatGPT for financial advice?
No. It's it, that's a whole nother there. We
Oh,
could
I
we could
know.
go
I
down
know.
that
AI
road.
is don't. Yeah, it's scary.
It's,
Wild.
today's just go look at the market today, and
Yep.
it's an interesting time right now for
It-
tech, AI.
oh God, yes.
It's fun. It's fun, but it's changing so fast and it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to stay on top
It
of.
is. Yep. Well, Kavika, you survived, but before I let you go, like with past guests, who's in your volleyball circle or you think should come on and share their journey?
Hmm. It's a great question. Have you had any of the Hogues on yet?
The Canadian Hogues?
Yeah.
No.
You got to get Nick or Glenn on.
Okay.
Yeah, I've played with Nick and I played for Glenn.
Oh shoot.
Yeah, over in Europe, and great guys. Obviously, pillars of the Canadian volleyball
Yeah.
um world. So that would be kind of fun. I think you got to hit them up.
All
And
right.
let me think of an American for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
I got Coach Spraw coming on at some point. We haven't locked down a date yet.
Okay. That I was gonna suggest him. Another one could be our assistant coach, Matt Furbringer.
Okay.
He'd be kind of fun too, because he's now going to be the coach in Columbus for one of the new pro teams.
Oh, nice.
So he's kind of going back and forth and is really involved in the volleyball space right now, the
Excellent.
ever evolving volleyball
Yes.
space right now.
Yep.
On the men's side, he has a club, and also now on the women's pro side. So he could be kind of fun too.
All right, there we go. Actually, I had a alumni from Stanford on, Canadian, Justin Louis.
Oh yeah, Justin's
Yeah,
great. Man,
yeah.
he's making a great career, and it's been fun following him, and actually met him for the first time right before he went to Stanford in Ottawa, and
Oh,
we
no
played
way.
there.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, Kavika, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate this, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Barry. Great job on the podcast and pushing the sport forward. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hey, she's a beauty.